All right, let's go back in time. October 2006. The tech world is absolutely buzzing about this deal. A deal that honestly seemed completely insane. Google just dropped over $1.5 billion on this little scrappy video website. And get this, it was only a year old and wasn't making a dime. So the question on everyone's lips was, has Google completely lost it?
And this is how they announced it. It's just this simple kind of home video style message from the co-founders, Chad and Steve, talking right to their community. They're trying to play it cool, saying, hey, we're just two kings getting together to make things better. But let's be real, behind all that casual talk, this was a massive, industry-shaking deal.
I mean, $1.6 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's what Google paid for a website that was barely a year old and had zero clear path to actually making money. The experts? Oh, they weren't just skeptical, they thought it was nuts. This looked like one of the biggest, craziest gambles tech had ever seen. So you gotta wonder, right? How did Google's top brass look at that insane price tag and see a total golden opportunity? What was their secret? What did they see that nobody else did? Well, it turns out their logic had almost nothing to do with making a quick buck. Let's dive in and really break down their thinking. Okay, so the first piece of this whole puzzle is this simple but kind of brilliant idea they call the toothbrush test. This is the key. It's the metric they use that just cuts through all the financial spreadsheets and the noise and gets right to the heart of what Google actually cares about in a product. See, at its core, Google's whole philosophy is about playing the long game. They just weren't worried about getting an immediate return on their investment. Their fundamental belief was this: if you build something that people find absolutely essential, something they can't live without, the money will come. It'll figure itself out down the road. It's a strategy that's all about patience. And this right here is the test itself. It's so simple. They just ask, is this something people will use as often as their toothbrush? At least once or twice a day, every single day. And that's what's so brilliant about it. It's not some complicated spreadsheet with market projections. It's just about one thing, becoming a daily habit that people can't do without. So, when the folks at Google looked at YouTube, it was a no-brainer. It was a perfect fit. I mean, they were even seeing it in their own lives. They were using it all the time. They knew this wasn't just some fad that would disappear. Nope, this thing was quickly becoming a daily ritual for millions of people. It absolutely aced the toothbrush test. And this really shows you the two completely different ways of looking at the same thing. On one hand, you have the rest of the world, seeing a crazy idea that was just hemorrhaging money. But Google, with their long-term glasses on, they saw something totally different. They saw a product that was becoming essential, and they were willing to bet big that eventually, you can always figure out how to make essential profitable. Okay, but having a cool long-term vision, like the toothbrush test, isn't the whole story. It's not enough. To make these massive company-defining bets, you also need something else. A culture that isn't just okay with risk, but one that actually embraces the idea that you might fail. And this is really a huge part of their secret sauce for innovation. The idea is, if you want to do something truly groundbreaking, you have to be willing to fall flat on your face. For Google, failure isn't the end, it's just data. And sometimes it's the beginning of a totally new success story. Take AdSense, for example. It's a perfect case study. What we now know as this huge part of online advertising, well, it actually started as a failed experiment inside Google. They were just trying to understand the web better, but they didn't just throw it away. They pivoted, and they turned that failure into a massive success. It's that kind of thinking, that a failure might just be an opportunity in disguise, that was so important when they were staring down the huge risks of buying YouTube. All right, this brings us to the last piece of the puzzle, and maybe the boldest part of the entire Google philosophy. It's the mindset that drives them to take on these projects that are so huge, most companies wouldn't even dare to think about them. The story goes that one of the founders heard this in a leadership course, and it just stuck. It became a motto for the entire company. Now, it might sound a little reckless, right? But there's actually a really powerful strategy behind it. It's basically an order to think on a scale that other people would just dismiss as impossible. And here's the crazy logic that actually makes a ton of sense. First, when you go after something that everyone else thinks is impossible, guess what? You don't have a lot of competition, because no one else is brave enough to try. And second, the absolute best people, the top engineers, the most creative minds, they want to work on the biggest, hardest problems. So aiming for the impossible is actually one of the best recruiting tools you could ever have. Okay, so let's put it all together. You've got the toothbrush test, you've got the courage to fail, and you've got this healthy disregard for the impossible. Now, let's bring it all back to that huge billion-dollar question we started with and see how the YouTube bet actually played out. So, did it work? Did the bet pay off? Oh yeah, big time. For 4 years in a row after Google bought it, YouTube's revenue doubled every single year. The growth was just off the charts. It was the ultimate proof of their theory. Once you get that toothbrush test product, the money really does follow. That crazy billion-dollar bet, it turned into an absolute financial juggernaut. When you boil it all down, the whole strategy really comes down to this one powerful idea, that anything you can imagine is probably doable. You have to imagine it first, and then get to work. The YouTube deal wasn't just another acquisition. It was that whole philosophy made real. A huge bet on the future, backed by the patience and the vision to see it come true.
So, as we wrap this up, it kind of leaves us with a really interesting question to think about, doesn't it? Because this way of thinking, it's not just for giant tech companies. Whether you're thinking about a new project, a business idea, or even a goal in your own life, what's that simple daily use metric you could apply? What's your toothbrush test for a great idea?